Welcome back to French Follies 2 as we play Hearts of Iron 4 Black Ice. But before we do that, if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course I really love hearing from you, so post comments below. I'm going to use this series in these next few episodes to talk about some things. Yes, while playing the game, we're going to be playing the game, but talking about France, and I know I've sort of done this before, and this isn't going to be a detailed history lesson with lots of names and dates and whatnot. There'll be some while we play, but there's some important issues that I guess I don't have a clear answer. I don't know if anybody has. I'm sure some academics sort of kind of feel they do, but a clear answer on some of the meanings of things. But it's definitely important issues, and very much to this day. But let's get on with the game here. Okay, we're going to let's see if we can send an attaché to China. It's going to take a lot of our political power and military power, but for two reasons. One, it will help us get more military experience and whatnot, but also allow for the series. They will not accept command power. They won't accept. Why won't they accept? Negative, positive. Chinese opinion is too low of opinion about us. Wow. They won't. Would Japan? They won't accept either. Wow. Neither nation will accept an attaché. That sort of sucks. Partially because, yeah, I wanted to get some benefits from it, but I also wanted to be able to get a better look into what was going on for the series. But oh well. All right. So France, in the interwar period and before the interwar period. Not many people watching just yet. But I have to wonder, national identity in France in particular here. Tank designs, very nice, and yes, I will be interrupting myself a lot, I'm sure. Powered turret. We could do that. That looks good. National identity is more than a common language, but it's often been seen by people as simply just that. All the people that speak French, or mostly, or all the people that speak Italian make up the Italian, but make up being Italian. Hello, Toy Jet. Okay. I guess that's what you're coughing in the morning or something. But there's more to it than that. Now in France in this time period, and again before this time period, right now this would be the Third Republic of France. Onslaught of Austria, okay. And so, you know, what is France? What is France? Is it a monarchy? Is it an empire? You know, in a way, those two things are Chiang Kai-shek. Yeah, I guess we'll attend. Now, will that help us get an attaché in there by any chance? They will not accept. Okay, that didn't help very much. And so, and, you know, like I was saying, this is the Third Republic. Well, you have the First Republic is, you know, post the French Revolution. Then you have the First Empire, which is Napoleon taking over from there. And then you have the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy. And then you have the very brief collapse of the Bourbon monarchy for 100 days. For the 100 days, yes. Sort of self-name time. Hey, Martin, how you doing? When Napoleon comes back. And then you have the restoration of the Bourbon Empire. And then, the Second Republic. So just checking up some of the dates here. Like, 1848, I believe, when they have another sort of revolution against the Bourbon monarchy. And the grandson of Napoleon is president. And then he then stages a coup against himself and forms the Second Empire, getting rid of the republic that he sort of helps find. And then in 1870, I think it has to do with the German invasion, the Prussian invasion, I should say. You have the collapse of the Second Empire, and you have the founding of the Third Republic. So, is France a monarchy or an empire? Now, empire just, what's the difference, you know, when it's all dressed up between everything? Well, they're both, to a point, a single person rule, to a point, though, of course, a modern what are the effects? Focus. I wish we knew what that was. The goal strategy. I think we're gonna. Ooh, wait a minute. We have our very unique. I'm doing quite well, actually. Thanks, Martin. Since we don't have a west wall to deal with, I don't think Germany's building one behind here. We're looking at possibly going rather offensive strategy. So do we want to do motorized focus, mechanized focus, further armament program, which either one works, equipment, fortification focus, levy en masse. And of course, was first done by that Grand Batterie. Army reforms. Okay, so really it's just these two here, because either one will do the center of it. Do we want to do fortresses? Okay, gains Nash Fork, which grants plus 5% Alpine Fork. Just extend the marginal. You know, just in case things don't work out, I think we're going to do the marginal line. I don't know that we have the industrial capacity or the whatever in the game to really do overly motorized things. And so, to many of us today, and I'm often, shall we say, thinking here of the Americans, but not entirely, Europeans. Why are people still to this day And I think it lurks in people's minds, in some people's minds, more than people suspect. But why the sort of support for Bourbonists or Bonapartists in France? Is it just because of some hereditary gene that makes them super special? No, I really don't think that's the case for most people. There are sort of two branches, including the Orleanists and I guess the standard Bourbons in France, as to who would be the rightful Bourbon monarch. I know this may sound strange to people who are talking about the interwar period, but Action Française, well, sort of gets banned, sort of not. The sort of paramilitary wing of it definitely gets banned in 36 in France. So by 38, it is a monarchist, generally speaking, party. Now, in France, again, the genetics of the ruler, as it were, could we use, well, war support stability, we could use that. We want to do any of this other stuff here. We're already doing that. We got enough of that done. I guess we'll continue over here on this. Political power gain, that would be nice. Base stability, we'll just do that. The sort of genetics of who the leader is, to a point, is just to, if you will, keep the competition down. Is, well, who should we pick? Well, you sort of pick the genetic person. But what really is the support is, a lot of it for Bourbonists and Bonapartists, is how Catholic are you, if you will? How much does the religion, should religion play in society? How traditional is that for you? And that is a major element of determining what faction you may want to support there. Up to there. And so it's not just, is Napoleon or Louis the whatever should be the rightful ruler of France that a lot of people are concerned about. It's how deep the traditionalism is, how deep the connection to the Catholic Church is, and that sort of comes into your play with the traditionalist far right. Now, Action Française basically collapsed after World War I because monarchism, generally speaking, collapses in Europe because of World War I and the inability of particularly the monarchies, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, Britain, Tsarist Russia, the Kingdom of Romania, are all incapable of successfully ending the war. Because, should I say no one read Sun Tzu? You don't continue fighting. Where are you? You're over there. One of you are over here. Where's the other one? I don't know. Okay. Where are you?
Écoutez.
Okay, where are you? That's the one I want to see. Oh, you're up here. Okay. What are you doing up there? I don't know. You need to understand,
Attention.
you know, the battlefield. Understand when to fight and when not to fight. When you've won, when winning isn't really a likely outcome. So it's, and I know I'm jumping around topics here. The best general wins without fighting the battle. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't, and when he talks about this is the idea of the big battle, the Waterloo. It's the best general shows up and gets into such a position with the enemy, and the other general looks around and goes to the guy standing next to him, you know, Bob? Yes, Sam? Bob, we're not going to win this one, are we? No, Sam. And the other general needs, the opposing general needs to go, hey, you know, I've got this battle won. If you, like, agree to these terms, whatever they may be, then, you know, let's say to Germany, giving up this sort of part of Germany because it hasn't won its invasion, partially to Belgium, partially to France. You know, you give up this part of Germany, and we don't have to kill each other. So the other general goes, you know, after reading the message, you know, Bob, instead of all of us dying here and losing not only this part of Germany, but all of this part of Germany as well, we can just give up this part of Germany and prepare and be ready for round 2, whatever that might mean, in the future. You're right, Sam. We should end this now with our army intact, because our army is not just human lives, which are, you know, may or may not be important to a particular general, but it's an instrument. It's a trained instrument. Whether it's a well-trained instrument or not, that could be another, you know, debate. But it's a trained instrument, and if it gets to march away with its arms, its equipment, its units intact, and march away. So the other general, General Lee, we'll call him, I don't know, just pick that, who was able to maneuver the battle into the place to make it like, yeah, I'm going to win. And the other general hopefully is good enough to realize that he's lost before committing, you know, to a stupid fight.
Pareil.
And so battles won without being fought, and that is an important element of Sun Tzu's theories. Now, of course, sometimes generals won't recognize that they've lost, and if, not always, if your political leadership is different than your military leadership, your political leadership needs to also sort of realize, yeah, they said the war would be over by Christmas 2 years ago. And then the next year they said it would be over by Christmas this year. Yeah, you know, Christmas is 3 months away, and it doesn't look like we're any nearer to Berlin. And they said it's going to be over by Christmas this year for sure. Well, maybe our political leadership can't really win this war. Maybe we need to negotiate. Maybe we need to figure something else out. And so your political leadership, you know, now maybe the and I'm not saying what they're telling the, you know, the mass population. What are they telling the actual political leadership? If the military is saying, hey, we're going to be lucky if we just hold out till next Christmas, and well, hey, we actually did pretty well, political leadership, and then halfway through next year, we'll be lucky if we still haven't lost Paris by this Christmas, and hey, yeah, we're doing good, you know. So I don't know what the military leadership is telling the political leadership, but if the political leadership is being told that we're barely hanging on, and then we do sort of okay, maybe that should be an indication we should see about negotiating here. Because, so I don't know what privately, and I don't know how well it's documented in France or in Britain or in America, though America was barely there in World War One. How well or what the political leadership was being told by these guys. And, the World War One versions. Yes, probably all these guys fought in World War One, and he is there. Well, his face is there twice, or 3 times actually. Over here, get reused a lot. But they were probably majors and whatnot in the First World War. Not the generals. Pétain, who's not yet on the scene really, he's a retired general at this point, was telling the internal private leadership communications and how well that's been documented, but I have not read enough of World War One to know any of these things. And so one of the two things should, of course, be well, we're not worrying that much about naval. World Entente is not an faction. Don't care about that. And so either the military leadership should be saying, "Hey, yeah, we're winning," and then it's apparent that they're not winning. Okay. Ooh, negative stability 3%. Okay. Or if they're telling them, the sort of actual truth, then the political leadership needs to be, and this doesn't just hold true for France, it holds true for Germany, for Tsarist Russia, because after Tannenberg and that sort of German defeat up there, the military leadership should have been telling the Tsar, hey, look, and especially, that's in, 1914. Hey, look, we can probably continue this war, and the Germans will not make it to Moscow, but we ain't conquering Germany. We aren't doing well, and it would be better if, for all concerned, including maybe possible survival of the Tsarship, if we sort of either go massively on the defensive, or if we were to negotiate a what do you call it? End of hostilities. We don't have to call it surrender. Give up, abandon the Serbs. No, we just negotiate an end of hostilities. I guess we'll do radius. And so, that should have been communicated to the Tsar. I don't know what was communicated to Tsar Nicholas II. I don't know if he was getting that sort of message and insisting, whether it's Russia's honor or the Tsar's honor or some other thing that we continue to fight for Serbia, or whether the Russian generals were all, oh, he was a fool, the leader there, just make me the head general and I'll give you endless victories forever. I have no idea what they were communicating up there, but and yeah, Tannenberg was a defeat, somewhere right in here, was a defeat for the Russians, but it didn't defeat the Russians, meaning there was lots of relatively well-equipped, it's a relative term for Russia, but relatively well-equipped armies for Russia to continue fighting. And yeah, I know we're talking about 1914 when we're in 1938, but it is sort of important. This, and I know I haven't lost where I started from, but Russia wasn't defeated, but I think it was rather apparent that you weren't going to have crushing victories of the German Empire. and the German Empire may have been stopped well outside of Paris, but it ain't conquering France anytime soon. And so, had you had the communication going on properly, and had the traditional, which includes the Republic in France, but the traditional political leadership realize that this war isn't another Napoleonic war. This isn't, well, we're going to open up another couple of factories making, paper cartridges that go ram down the muskets. And every 90 days, we're going to have 3 days of everybody just shooting the muskets, all they can possibly do it. And then that's it, because, you only have a big battle every once in a while. And, there's skirmish fighting going on. There's, little muskets and a few cannon shots popping off now and again. There may be a siege, but that's just a few siege guns firing at each other, quite honestly, while guys dig trenches mostly. No, we're going into this industrialized war. And again, at least the Western powers had sent military attaché, shall we say, to the American Civil War. And of course, there had been the Franco-Prussian War. And of course, Russia had experienced the Russo-Japanese War, as well, in which they had their fleet sunk, but there was also a significant land war going on there. So they understood this modern warfare and how industrialized it becomes in its production aspects, and that it isn't just whether it's the levy en masse in France or the small professional army in Britain of the Napoleonic Wars, or similarly the small professional army that Britain back around 1900 has been fighting the Boer Wars, in which most Britons, they may know, that neighbor Bob, his uncle's son died fighting them damn Boers. Now, this is like everybody's family is losing somebody or has somebody in the trenches. Hey, Arno. Great to have you here, my friend. So, it isn't just like your small professional army off somewhere in the colonies fighting a serious war, Now, and I'm just talking about, a few sniping rebels somewhere, but serious war. They're sort of like, I would say, what we've been facing in America, and I know some of the European countries have also been doing it, in either the occupation of Afghanistan or in Iraq, in which, periodically, body bags come home. People have died. More often, severely injured soldiers come home. But still, as a percentage of the American male population, the death isn't even getting near to a tenth of 1%. And I don't want to diminish at all, and I don't think anyone really listening to would think that I am diminishing the severity of any of that to those directly affected, either being wounded or immediate family members. But still, as affecting overall American society, it really isn't. And the tax burden, we've been spending a lot of money there, and it's you might say bankrupting us, but really isn't. That isn't. Other things that sort of are. But that's nothing compared to the, shall we say, scale of World War I and II, of just everything and how much it disrupts everybody's life. So since this didn't work out, and I'm still talking about monarchist elements and traditionalist elements, people lost faith in their political leadership. Whether it be, somebody with the name Kaiser, or a title Kaiser or Tsar, or His Majesty, or whatever. And so people lost a lot of confidence in that. So USA had the industrial capacity to outproduce most countries. That's important, Martin. It no longer does. And there is a massive difference between the U.S., well, throughout World War I, even once they go into the war, but U.S. definitely before U.S. enters World War I, and the U.S. industrial output before it enters World War II, in which, as we would call them now, defense industries, back then it would be war industries, were ramping up. So it gets to the point that anybody and everybody who has any sort of talent in like firearms making is in super high demand. And Russia, France, particularly those are the two biggest ones, but also Britain, are coming to America and are like, hey, yeah, can we buy some guns? Almost literally any type of gun, because the French buy rolling block, single-shot Remington rifles in fairly large numbers, in the standard French caliber, in the 8mm Lebel. Now the French have absolutely no intention of ever using any of these rifles to ever shoot at any German soldier. But they need these rifles. Now, like I said, no intention. And I don't think they ever do shoot at a single French soldier. And they buy, I don't know, 100,000 of them or more. I don't know. Because these are a model that Remington was already geared up and able to make. And they could just make more of them faster and didn't have to rejigger the production machinery and just get them there. Because they need rifles for the troops back in Nantes or out in Brest or around some mines, whether it's against a local riot, an anti-conscription riot maybe, or just guarding a supply depot from theft. They just need a guy with a gun with a bayonet on it to march around, and he has some bullets, and that's all. They just need this sort of rear area soldier kind of rifles because all of their production they're putting to frontline use. So they just come to America, and Russia does the same thing. Britain does not so much. There's some sort of mass buying of what, either off the shelf, current stock, or what they're already able to make. Britain is a little more on, hey, well, can you start making us these new P-14 rifles for us and things like that, and start working on that. And Russia is a mix of things, and France is as well. And so if you have any sort of these skills, the biggest hurdle for most of these companies is getting skilled workers, not getting the machine tools and or the money to expand their factories. But that isn't disrupting American life. It isn't like, oh, we now have to ration fuel, or we have to ration food, or we have to, you have to maybe limit your travel because, hey, there's a war on in Europe, but you don't have to limit your travel over here. You can go wherever you want. It's not a disruption of life compared to, say, World War II, in which they mobilize the population for war production in America. So it's about the disruption, not that, oh, hey, they're dropping bombs on my house and I may die. Yeah, that's a massive disruption. But it's also sort of like the disruption that we are all facing right now with the coronavirus, and you're not allowed to go outside. That kind of thing. Well, they had a lot of technological advances, but no, I'm not sure if you're talking World War II. Yeah, yes and no. I mean, that's complicated things. And yes, they had a resource problem. And so, gasoline engines, Italian armor speed, fuel usage, fuel capacity. We're going to do recovery rate. And so, yeah, the disruption to society, to France, yes, the battle was fought mostly on French soil here in the West. Well, yeah, it's sort of down here. But it disrupts all of French society. So people have lost confidence in this, in their political leaderships. And again, I know some of you are more recently coming here that haven't, they'll watching later, on what should society be like? What are the roles of various institutions in society? A lot of the monarchist groups wanted decentralized monarchist in France, in particular. So decentralized government, and not so much that Paris rules everything, but I don't know if their quite vision goes to a federal system, with a lot of like states, like in the United States, with local legislatures and whatnot, or just a little less centralization, more local control. The monarchists generally are more religious, maybe want religious views taught in school or schools run by religious authorities. The Republicans, before this period, the Republicans are a bit more centralization, a lot less, much more anti-clerical, not wanting the church. I mean, go to the French Revolution, the first one. They want to get rid of the church entirely. Bye, gone. Let's behead the priests, that kind of thing. But later on, it's more like, you don't get to control us, church, kind of thing. I would classify that as a situation, than as a wanting to kill church people. And so you get this situation. Now, after the First World War, you have the serious rise. I mean, they existed before, communism and socialism. You get the serious rise of that, and they talk about more progressive or progressive social policy was one of the things that the sort of popular front at this time in France, is it communist aggregate? Okay, well, I guess maybe it's just sort of just Parti Radical is sort of part of the popular front, I guess. More progressive, but progressing towards what? What when they say and a lot of people are progressives, but progressing towards what? What are you a progressive? They say a progressive social policy. Let's not talk economics right now, but progressive social policy. Can anybody in chat tell me what that means? Progressing towards what? What's a progressive social policy? Not naming one, but what is a progressive social policy? Quite good. Got me some new models. He going to the model store, he said. Okay. Political power gain. Oh, we got a lot of political power. We need to maybe use some of that up. I don't know. We're going to stay here. Let's do that. Anybody? A progressive social policy on YouTube, Twitch. A progressive social policy, political advisor, government funded, consumer goods during fact. Propaganda minister, economic minister. Okay. Armored vehicles, anti-fascist, the acceptance of fascist diplomacy, tank factory construction speed, base stability, industrial planner, armaments organizer. Not seeing any good ones here. Hello, De Italia. We want fascism. Well, fascism is not that good of a thing. We'll get into that maybe in a bit, but so progressive social policy. And people say this, but what do they mean? And I don't know. I mean, a lot of them, they throw around, social justice. How do you do social justice? Hello, Fumi Fat. How you doing? We'll go with you. And so, yeah, some things can be like equal rights for women, equal rights for racial minorities, and that's all good stuff. But I'm, not trying to minimize that. But just simply progressive for the sake of... no.
Bougez-vous. Bougez-vous.
Oh yeah, I remember you're from Thailand.
Gardez vos rangs.
There we go. So, that becomes sort of a thing for what you see on the left. No racial equality is for units. Well, I think I'm going to disagree with you there. And when people say they want to ban certain speech, for example, ask yourself why. Absolutely. Absolutely, USA man. Scotland is trying to ban offensive speech. Well, the only speech that you need to protect is offensive speech, because what's the point of... Okay, world tension is not high enough yet to do that, but we can hit on some of that once it gets there. Mm. 42, 49 days. We'll do this first. Ah, the World Cup, yay. And so the sort of Parti Radical, and what so the socialists definitely gain a lot of hold after World War One. Who am I angry with? I hope that's me. I'm not particularly angry. And so you see that, and then you see the people that reject the sort of extreme anti-religious views of the socialists, reject the anti-nationalist views of the socialists and communists, but are in essence socialists, and they sort of form the fascist right, if you will. And whether they're the right or not, because fascists are socialists. They are clearly, the fascisti was the symbol of the socialists in Italy for a while, until sort of taken over by by Mussolini's fascists, and they're fascist corporatist viewpoint, but they're also nationalists, and they're pro-religion. And so you have that showing up on the right. Now, in France, there's definitely elements that are pro-fascist because they're watching that. And so they don't want to see, the return, they see the failure, if you will, of the traditional right. Should we be researching? Renault D2 BIS, probably don't need that. Oh, whatever, we'll research this. Well, no. Mussolini's origin was in the Italian Socialist Party, primarily. Publisher of one of its main newspapers. And he comes to the concord with the church. So he's definitely not, like what I'm talking about here in France, but also is somewhat true in Italy, is the traditional right is very pro the church. Mussolini, he compromised, but is really power. But, okay, now see here, I think we have, with De Italia, what is a machine tool? Is a tool that does a particular operation over and over with precise capability. Meaning like a lathe or a drill press or something similar like that, a stamping machine, as opposed to a hammer, a drill, or a file, doing it with a hand tool. And it's generally a powered machine tool. Okay, there's a difference between church control, say like in Italy, where with the compromise of the church, in which the church controlled, and I forget to what age, in schools in Italy. There's a difference between that, actual church control of an institution, not government, well, maybe government paid for institution, but an institution, say like education, actual church control of it, which I will agree that Mussolini was not in favor of. He compromised for that. There's a difference between that and that the idea that churches should be allowed to exist without suppression. Okay, see, they wanted to, in communism, ban the idea of priests even existing, and now they do make compromises in communism and allow some churches to exist and some priests to exist, but they are highly suppressed and controlled by the government. So on one extreme is like, oh, you're a priest? Well, here's a bullet for your head. Okay, communism would like to do that because religion is the opiate of the masses and they want to get rid of the opiate of the masses. Okay, that's communism. Now that's extreme. That's not socialism or normal sort of socialism. That's sort of extreme socialism, communism. They want to kill off, like in the French Revolution, they want to kill off the priests and the nuns, if you're Catholic, or pastors and whatnot if you're Protestant. And on the old, ancient, traditional right, they want the church to be one part of the governing body. Like in Scotland, I know the old 3 estates that governed Scotland before unification with Britain, and they all sat in one house. It wasn't like there was 3 different, the House of Lords and House of Commons, but they sort of had the burgesses or whatever, the representatives from the towns. So they're sort of the commons, but they weren't like the people out in the farmers. They were the sort of represent the town's elites. Then you had the nobles sitting in there in a voting block. And then you had the church leaders sitting in the third block. And these 3 blocks of people actually cast votes. So because you're, in Scotland, and again, I don't know every country all over the world and at all the different times. I don't know everything, but I do know there was a time in which, if you were the Bishop of Aberdeen or whatever, you got to go to, in essence, the Scottish Parliament just because you're the bishop, and you had a vote because you were the bishop. So religious leaders, just because they were religious leaders, had a vote in the government, in the governing bodies of society. Okay, just because they were in church. Now, to an American, that seems really weird. You mean all the Catholic bishops and cardinals and all the Protestant equivalent of them? Because it depends. Some do have bishops and cardinals. The Church of England, if you will, or the Anglican Church. Just because you're that, you get to go to Parliament or Congress and vote? Who gave you that permission? Well, of course, because you're the church, and the church is represented in government. Okay, see, that is the old traditional view, and I would agree that Mussolini wasn't for that, but neither was... Mussolini wanted instructional control. He wanted to indoctrinate the children, absolutely. And so, probably more so than in Europe, more Christian in the U.S. At least that's my understanding of things. So you have... he isn't for, Mussolini is not for clerical control of institutions of society, but he is not for banning the church from existing and church owning the churches and maybe other lands. His corporatism doesn't allow too much, land ownership for the churches, but Mussolini was pro-religion, but not pro-religious control. And that's where we get, like I say, under the communists, somewhere between trying to kill off all of the religious leaders to tolerating a very few to exist and under very controlled circumstances. So those are sort of 2 extremes under socialism. So the socialism of that is pro-nationalism and pro-religion is the fascism, but they are corporatists. They are socialists, but they see things different than one of the another big difference between at least Mussolini's fascism and socialism and communism is, although they are socialists, the fascists are a type of socialist, they are not trying for equality, meaning they are hierarchical. So they're going to be rich people, but there aren't going to be destitute poor people either, is the idea. And it is a corporate social body going on. So you can have the rich guy with the sports car, but he can't be too rich if somebody's poor and starving and destitute. Very religious. Well, I don't know very religious. I don't know that there's in the Western world any large groups of percentage of populations are very religious. No, sorry. The Orthodox Church is not very powerful. No, They have a lot of influence, yes, but they're not like they were in the past. Not you're either over when you're using the term very. No. And thank you, Arno. Yes, you can follow me on YouTube if you're on Twitch, and if you prefer, you can follow me over on Twitch if you're on YouTube, if that's a better source for you. Either way. And so, yeah, no, it's more powerful than it was under the Soviets, absolutely, but it goes from no power to some influence, or whatever. So it's definitely more influential. Okay, we're going to end this episode here. We're going to be continuing in future talks, talking about society, France, and the French Follies that were happening. The conflict that allows Germany to conquer France, in essence. See you back next time.